Hello all and welcome to Video Game Talk. I'm Rich Alvarez and with me is Garrett Allen. Wait, there he is.
Yeah, I'm here. Woo woo!
Alright. So we've got a lot to answer about in this this obviously isn't the very first Video Game Talk. However, it is the beginning of a new format of Video Game Talk. And we'll talk about that a little bit. We obviously want to get into Mario Odyssey, which was the title of this video. We will be discussing a little bit about Assassin's Creed Origins, our thoughts on the Fractured But Whole South Park game, as well as other things going on in the video game industry right now. So, just so you know, and hopefully people will be watching this on YouTube as it happens, and then Video Game Talk will also be a podcast on iTunes eventually as well as maybe other locations. So basically, here's the plan. The plan is that Video Game Talk will be every Thursday live at about 5 p.m. I know we're kind of late here. Yeah.
Initial setup, all that jazz.
Setting up the first one. But it'll be somewhere around 5:30 every Thursday night. Garrett and I will talk about games for about 40 to 45 minutes, and then we'll save the last 15 or so minutes to answer your live questions right here on YouTube. We won't be answering questions in the comments the entire time, though, because that would make it kind of boring for the people just listening to it on iTunes. They'll be like, wait, I'm not seeing these comments. So don't worry. So that means that every Thursday, the live show will end with 15 minutes of us answering your questions. And then during the week, we hope to put out a lot more video game talk, probably like 5, 10, 15-minute videos that cover game reviews or video game news, and some of those videos might be excerpts from the Thursday night broadcast, and then they'll be re-edited with some cool pictures, make them exciting to entice new people to come to our Thursday night live videos. And some of those videos, because, you know, video game news happens sometimes, some of those videos will just be made some of those videos will just be made to be videos. So don't be surprised if you start seeing on the Rich Alvarez channel videos that are edited videos taken from this, or videos that we just all of a sudden decided to make. The point is that Video Game Talk is going to have a huge presence from now on the Rich Alvarez channel. But Rich Alvarez, what happened to Video Game Fights? If you've been a Rich Alvarez fan for a long time, you've known that our regular thing for a while has been Video Game Fights. Season 2, for the most part, has kind of come to a close. We've been wanting to do something kind of special for the Season 2 finale, but we haven't quite gotten to it yet. But we will get there. So yeah, Garrett, why don't you, what are your thoughts on the end of Video Game Fights real quick?
Oh no, yeah, it's good. I think we did an okay job with season 2. It hasn't proved to be wildly popular and whatnot, and I think I'm eager to see if people check it out retroactively. But I think season 2 is about as good as we can make it. I'm excited for our really chaotic finale that we have planned, and yeah, absolutely, that content is still there. And if you are at all interested in checking out the Video Game Fights entourage, it's still there. Go check it out. Tell us what you like, and we are hoping to bring it back for a 3rd season at some point. In the meantime, though, Video Game Talk.
Video Game Talk. Cool. And yeah, we are experimenting with a new format. This is almost an entirely new Video Game Talk than what Video Game Talk has existed as in the past. We will improve the green screen technology. Garrett and I have been kind of going with green screen technology a little bit. I keep saying green screen. We've been using green screens for some of our streams. Garrett has certainly been on top of the green screen more consistently than I have on his streams, and we will continue to improve this format in the future. Ideally, Garrett and I will actually be sitting in the same room to not have this weird, like, my head's as big as his whole body thing going. But we were a little rushed tonight and had some issues where we couldn't actually be in the same room. That's neither here nor there. The last thing that I will say before we finally get on with actually Video Game Talk, and in the future, guys, when these videos start, we're just going to start talking about video games. So this is just your little warning, because it's the first one about everything going on. So the last thing I will say before we move on is that that some of you will, of course, be wondering what's going on with Super Mario Brothers, and I will just say that we are finished filming Stupid Mario Legacy, the big Stupid Mario movie that is going to be coming out on November 25th. We are completely in post-production, and we are trying as hard as we can to make sure that the post-production and the final movie is finished by the release date of November 25th. That's all I'm going to say about Stupid Mario Brothers. So, Garrett, are you ready to move on?
Yeah, no, for sure. We are super hype on Legacy. It's going really well. The preliminary results suggest that it's going to be really, really, really cool, and we are not talking about it tonight.
That's great.
However, if Stupid Mario Brothers is a a point of conversation that you really want to ask us specifically about or engage with the community on, I really recommend you jump on the Stupid Mario or the Rich Alvarez Discord, which I think either Marty Man or a few others can get a link in the chat for and whatnot. Direct all of your Stupid Mario Brothers questions there. We will answer them in insane detail on the Discord.
Sweet.
But yeah, other than that, that's all good.
Whew.
Let's talk about some video games.
All right, so obviously, let's talk about the title of this video, which is that Stupid Mario Odyssey. And if you're watching this on YouTube, which is October 26th, a Thursday, you know that many game stores are opening up their doors as early as 7 p.m. in some places, but mostly at midnight, for the release of Super Mario Odyssey. What many anticipate to be the greatest Mario game since possibly even Super Mario 64. And of course, I appreciate that a lot of people are big fans of Super Mario Sunshine, Super Mario Galaxies 1 and 2, and Super Mario 3D World. This is at the very least the next stage of the main Mario. I don't really want to say canon because there's not really like a conclusive storyline throughout Mario, but it's the next big Mario game. This isn't, you know, like this isn't Super Mario Go or Super Mario Run or Jump or whatever it was called for the Android. This is the next huge Mario game. And you know, I've had opportunities to play it at E3, and I've been to special Nintendo events where I've been able to get some hands-on experience, and I've had much more experience playing this than than most people have, except for maybe, you know, like IGN. So anyways, here's what I gotta say about Super Mario Odyssey. And I'm actually gonna start with my score first so you guys can kind of understand where I'm coming from. I'm giving this a 9 out of 10. And I'm you know, we should establish this right now.
That's interesting because that is behind the average review, but
it's true.
that is still a very good score.
But why am I not giving it a 10 out of 10? Well, let me ask you this, Garrett, because this will set the basis for every video game talk going forward. Is there really a such thing as a perfect game? Because
no, but
exactly.
I know there's so many people that are going to say like yes, yeah, no. For the sake of conversation, I certainly couldn't name one. I mean, is it theoretically possible? Yes. Is it deeply subjective? Yes.
Now, I'm old and I'm biased. There's one game in existence that I would give a perfect 10 out of 10.
Chrono Trigger!
Thanks. Yeah, that's right. Chrono Trigger is the only game that I will really give a true 10 out of 10. So if on this show at any time we give a game a 10 out of 10, that means it's on par with Chrono Trigger. And guess what, guys? Probably ain't gonna happen. At least for me. Garrett, you can give your own scores to things, but right now, I would say that Mario Odyssey is a 9 out of 10. On the basis, by the way, since you guys don't know my opinions on some of the older stuff, that I would give Galaxy 1 an 8 out of 10, Galaxy 2 a 7 out of 10, Super Mario Sunshine a 7 out of 10, and Super Mario 64 an 8 out of 10. That means, by the way, that I think this is the best Mario game since Super Mario World on the Super Nintendo, which I also gave a 9 out of 10. So, this is my favorite Mario game in about 26 years. And yes, I was old enough to remember when Mario World came out and enjoy it. So, there you go.
Special?
Now, Garrett, you've had some minimal experience with Super Mario Odyssey, but what are your first impressions on the game?
Yeah, I've had my experience on the game is certainly trailing behind yours, but I think we've reached a pretty neat consensus on kind of what it is. I am less so the platformer fan than you are. You know, just a lot of my interests didn't develop in quite that way. But, you know, I really like what I see from Odyssey so far. I really like the idea. I guess you could say the highest praise I could give for it in just really simplistic terms is the idea that Mario is obviously a very old and I don't want to say tired, but like potentially a very, very tired concept, you know, in platforming. Nintendo has been around the block a few times on this style of game and obviously in the 3D Mario format. And I love to see that basically in spite of a lifetime of experience, they're able to continue to keep it fresh with new mechanics that just walk that perfectly good line between being familiar enough to be relatable and harken back to kind of the golden age of gaming, while also new enough that the experience feels fresh and original from start to finish. I think Mario Odyssey in that regard is exactly what it needed to be.
I think that Mario Odyssey is kind of the game that, and again, I loved Super Mario 64. I am saying nothing bad against Mario 64.
No, it defined a lifetime of platformer games. It was incredible.
Without Mario 64, we wouldn't have other great platformers of the day. However, they didn't really make a true sequel to Super Mario 64. The next major Mario game was Sunshine, and I felt like, in my opinion, it kind of went in a direction that I didn't quite like. I actually, my favorite platformers of the day are like Banjo-Kazooie and Conker's Bad Fur Day, and things that I felt like took the platforming genre to a place that I really enjoyed, especially Banjo-Kazooie, being able to transform into different creatures and being able to go through levels through different perspectives, and I thought that that was a great way to evolve the platforming genre that we didn't really quite get out of Sunshine. I'm obviously not complaining that that wasn't there in Mario 64, because that kind of set the standard for all 3D platforms afterwards, but guess what? Now, with Mario Odyssey, I feel like it did go where we always wanted it to go. In almost, I think in every level, or at least almost every level, Mario now can transform via his hat. The hat has these special powers in this game. And
which is a very Banjo-Kazooie mechanic.
Yeah, exactly.
When you get right down to it. That is a lot of what we really liked about Banjo-Kazooie.
Like, by throwing your hat at a dinosaur, Mario then becomes the dinosaur. And you control the dinosaur, or he throws it at a Koopa and now you're a Koopa. So transformation is native to this game, and I love transformation in platforming games because it allows you to do it allows you to do things that are really cool that you wouldn't be able to do as regular Mario. And I feel like I would have liked to have seen that in like 1999, just a couple years after Mario 64, but better late than never. Right. And I'm so glad that this game is going back to that 90s style platforming that I've been wanting for so long. Obviously,
you could argue too that Odyssey has like the most Banjo-Kazooie in it of any game, because obviously these transformation mechanics are very central to the game, much like they were in Kazooie. And also, I noticed that Odyssey is really about exploration and sort of like really rooting out the corners of these maps and whatnot, and really experiencing the world on a more open basis than kind of the traditional level basis.
Oh, yeah.
I've noticed that's a vocabulary that's shifted a little bit more towards that Banjo-Kazooie style in Odyssey. And I love that. I think that's really cool. I think that's what they had to do. I think the on rails mechanics are not as popular these days because obviously technology has allowed us to circumvent that a lot. And I love to see those mechanics kind of coming in and whatnot. I see this very much as like a best of both worlds scenario.
Absolutely. I was really excited earlier this year for Yooka-Laylee, which was another throwback kind of callback platforming game, and I felt like that game was like a 7 out of 10. I feel like it almost got there. I
didn't like Yooka-Laylee for what it's worth.
Didn't like it? I feel like Mario Odyssey accomplishes exactly what Yooka-Laylee was kind of going for without feeling forced. Because if anything, I enjoyed Yooka-Laylee, but it did feel a little forced, and I feel like Mario Odyssey gets that feeling while feeling natural. and
right.
it's just a much
Yooka-Laylee was a little weird because I don't know, and it's so hard to describe like what Yooka-Laylee missed because it was approaching such a nuanced and very impossible, sort of like shoes to fill sort of situation. But I feel like in Banjo-Kazooie everything felt emergent. It felt like, oh, I figured out how to do the thing and whatnot. Everything felt like such this really cool discovery moment. You weren't being like guided to the idea that like, oh yeah, you have to jump on this and then you have to transform and then that goes in here and whatnot. It felt like, you felt like a genius playing Banjo-Kazooie and getting through their levels because it felt like you came up with that. It was beautiful level design. Whereas Yooka-Laylee, I felt a lot more like, okay, I have to get the key, and then I have to do this and whatnot, and I felt like it was very much just a really glorified checklist. I didn't like it in that regard.
Yeah, I agree for the most part. I mean, I did enjoy it, but yeah, I probably won't find myself playing it again because of those things. Whereas Mario Odyssey, I can see myself playing many times. And I think that this is really great for Nintendo, who knocked it out of the park earlier this year with led the new Zelda game, Breath of the Wild, and now here we are with Mario Odyssey. They are taking both of their most classic characters and really bringing them into, well, whatever we're calling this. I mean, we've been in the 21st century now for 17 years. Bringing them into the modern age, whatever you want to call it.
Right. This secondary post-decade, whatever it is.
And they've proven again that it's not just nostalgia that keeps winning the fans of Nintendo. It's also just them keep improving on their previous entries. Breath of the Wild is arguably the best Zelda game of all time, or at least the best Zelda game in like 20 years. And I feel exactly the same way about Mario Odyssey. It's the best Mario game in about 20 years. And it is because Nintendo keeps, building upon what they have with better and better stuff that keeps Nintendo going for so long, and the reason why they're still here and we don't still see Atari and Sega consoles. They have truly lasted and stood the test of time, whereas, I love Sony to death, like PlayStation. I don't quite have a love for the Xbox consoles, but they are kind of evolving into more of a computer territory where I feel like even if they kind of dissolved and there was only PC in that respect, I feel like there is always room for a Nintendo console because they are so niche with what they do and so specific that we're going to see Nintendo consoles for a long time no matter what, even if the other guys disappear and become part of the PC race. At least that's kind of a tentative theory that I have.
On PC for sure, but I will say that the Switch was the first console I ever bought with my own money.
Well,
as a human being.
Well, then there's my point. There's my point right there. So because you're like, I don't need a PlayStation, Xbox. 95% of those games I can play on PC, but the Switch and Nintendo stuff, that's so specific that if you want to play anything like that, you'd have to get a Nintendo console. So
I really have to eat a lot of my words on the Switch because I remember doing, our sort of like Switch preliminary talks, early in the video game fights era and whatnot, and I expressed a lot of not hesitancy, but I guess I really said the Switch has got a lot to measure up to if it's going to impress me, and the Switch has a lot to answer to if it's going to fill its potential and own up to what it is. And, well, guess what? Mission accomplished. I'm impressed.
Awesome.
As a non-Nintendo fanboy, the Switch has kind of reeled me in and has brought me into this spectrum of games that I normally never would be playing. So,
cool.
Hats off to Nintendo in that regard. Not that they need my approval.
Yeah, absolutely. Mario Odyssey, it's got great action adventure platforming. To be specific, people like, it's not an action game. I mean, guys, define what action is, and it's running around and stomping on stuff.
Adventure game, not so much action, but definitely adventure. I'm really excited about the exploration platformer part of this, because this is more over than almost any other Mario game has got that exploration part, which, again, from a Banjo-Kazooie-centric standpoint, we keep coming back to, is what I really liked about that game. So now we're seeing what the Switch as a remarkable piece of technology can offer in terms of open era exploration. Sweet.
Awesome. All right, guys.
Good stuff.
Well, Mario Odyssey comes out tomorrow, Friday, October 27th. So I give it a 9 out of 10. It's available for you. If you're watching this video tomorrow, then it's out today. Oh, look at that. Garrett out. I went over your video and it gave you your name. Cool. Now everybody knows who you are, Garrett. All right, moving on to the next topic. Another game comes out tomorrow. Actually, 2 more games come out tomorrow, and I would like to talk a little bit about both of them. So everybody, well, not everybody, again, if this is your first time with Video Game Talk, and it might be since we haven't done one in a long time and this is a new format, then you may not know that I'm a huge Bethesda fan, specifically Elder Scrolls and Fallout, but I love all of what they've been doing with publishing lately. Back in about 2012, 2013, Bethesda bought ID Softworks, which, as many people know, is most famous for Doom, Quake, and Wolfenstein. And so they have definitely delivered on Doom. I'm not sure if they done a new Quake yet. I think they were working
There is
Quake
that
stuff.
Quake Champions, which is kind of a free-to-play format. It doesn't look too bad, but it really hasn't roped me in, nor do I think it's like, I don't think you're missing anything there.
Okay. Well,
yeah.
A new Wolfenstein game comes out tomorrow, specifically Wolfenstein 2 something.
The new Colossus.
Yeah. So, Here's my thoughts on Wolfenstein. I grew up with the really old, Castle Wolfenstein games, and then of course there was Wolfenstein 3D. I loved their interpretation of this radical World War II gaming and kind of the extremity of it. What's really cool about Bethesda's Wolfenstein games, because this is their second one. The first Bethesda published Wolfenstein game came out in 2014 as The New Order. I think it was called Wolfenstein: The New Order, and it set up this new precedence that, and again, all Wolfenstein games have taken place during World War II. Bethesda was like, you know what, we're going to switch it up a little bit. So what's cool about Bethesda Wolfenstein, is that starting with The New Order, these games take place in the 60s, the 1960s, but if the Axis powers had won World War II, so you're living in Nazi-controlled America, and your mission is to reclaim the USA. And I won't spoil too much about The New Order, but this new game continues that trend. So I guess you can put it together that you didn't quite succeed in the first game, but in this one, it's so cool because it's 60s style spy work combined with Doom style first person shooter effects, combined with just trying your bestest to regain control of the United States that is hopelessly controlled by Nazi Germany. So it's all this crazy stuff in this, and this is becoming a thing with Bethesda too, if you think about it, because Fallout itself is supposed to be the post-apocalyptic future of an alternate reality. The world ended in a version of 2077 where the ideals and, way of life of the 1950s kind of never really stopped. And then 200 years after that is where the Fallout games take place. So we've got another crazy mythology. Again, Wolfenstein has always been fun, but when Bethesda bought it, they're the ones that started this 1960s alternate universe stuff, which is, why it's so amazing. So that's all I really want to say about it. I don't want to spoil too much more, but Garrett, are you interested in Wolfenstein 2?
I am interested in Wolfenstein 2. I feel like Wolfenstein 2... I feel like I really, really liked New Order.
Yeah.
For pretty much the exact same reasons that you described. New Order was a really, really cool, fresh take. It succeeded in being everything a Wolfenstein game really needs to be, which is just basically, it established itself early on as, just the definitive action shooter. It really came back strong with New Order, especially establishing this new universe, which was modern enough to kind of rope in, people who had become to expect a little bit more of a modern setting for shooters. And my feeling on the new Colossus is that if you liked New Order, you will like New Colossus. New Colossus doesn't strike me as something brand new and a big reinvention of the series and whatnot. It is, in every sense of the word, a tangible, good, functional, even well done sequel to New Order. So awesome. If you've played New Order and you enjoyed the New Order, that's great. It's not gonna, redefine the shooter genre as we know it or anything, dramatic or crazy like that. And I don't think it'll catch on a multiplayer level. But you know what? There's plenty of people out there doing really, really compelling multiplayer shooting content right now. I don't think we need another big entry into multiplayer shooting world. I really think that single player shooters is an excellent and underdeveloped niche right now. I think the new Colossus fills that well. And if you did like New Order, well, get New Colossus. What are you waiting for? Probably want to play New Order before you check out New Colossus if you're new to Wolfenstein. Both, I think, will be well worth your time.
Right. So again, these new line of Wolfenstein games published by Bethesda, they're still ID software. It's kind of interesting because they bought ID and they're still involved on a level, but there's actually another development studio that is heading up the development of this game, and the name of it escapes me. However, I think that they have earned their right, especially if this game does well. They have definitely earned their right to work on some of Bethesda's other properties. Again, I'm probably biggest on Fallout, and my favorite Fallout game is probably New Vegas, a game that Bethesda published but Obsidian Entertainment actually developed. And I would love to see Bethesda continue to allow other developers to work on their first-party games. So maybe this studio could even work on a Fallout game. I don't know. We'll see. I just want more Fallout. There's no reason why we have to wait 10 years for a numbered Fallout game.
I liked 4. I know you weren't the biggest, like the hugest fan of 4, but I really liked 4. But that being said, even having really enjoyed 4 and all that sort of stuff, I'm ready for, you know, a fresh take on Fallout, definitely.
At this point, I think I've decided that I like 4 pretty much as I like 3. And I do really enjoy 3 and 4. I've spent a lot. I can't say I don't like 4 because I've probably spent about 300 hours in it. And you know, there's no way you spend 300 hours in a game that you don't like.
I know, right? You didn't have an obligation to play that much, so you can't tell me you didn't like it.
I had an obscene amount of fun with Fallout 4. I feel like some of the mechanics are better in New Vegas, and I felt like they, for better or worse, made them more streamlined in 4. Maybe that's not the right word. I feel like they just kind of catered to an audience that wasn't as RPG savvy with Fallout 4. It wasn't as technical as New Vegas, and I really like how sweaty you get in New Vegas. You know what I mean? With you know, one of these days, you know, if they just want to like give me a Fallout game where you just have to fill out your character sheet completely, then I'm all down for that. But I like being technical. They simplified Fallout 4. That's probably the best way to say it. They simplified Fallout 4 a little bit, and that irritated me a little bit at first, but I got into the game and I enjoyed it. So it was a good game. You know, I just have to be a nerd about it. So.
That's fair. Yeah, we'll see what comes around with the next Fallout. The next big Fallout release is, of course, going to be the Fallout 4 VR title in December, which I am looking forward to as the owner of an HTC Vive. I think, while that will not be obviously anything different than what we've experienced time and time over again with Fallout 4, it's going to be exactly the same game. I'm very interested to see, like, Bethesda, like a real full-bodied production studio taking a crack at sort of like, you know, sort of the problems that have emerged with VR in terms of like, how do you move fluidly? How do you create the experience in a way that isn't overly cumbersome? And how do you work those mechanics in? So I you know, Fallout certainly exists in a very much a VR space right now. And I'm sure we'll dedicate probably a video game talk to VR once we see the verdict on the Fallout 4 VR games.
Awesome. Now there's one more game coming out tomorrow that I do want to talk about for a minute. I don't want to go into as much. I mean, I love Bethesda. I don't have as much love for this series, but Assassin's Creed Origins comes out tomorrow. My favorite Assassin's Creed so far is probably number 3 because I liked the addition of the you know, colonial times and, you know, kind of coming on the cusp of the American Revolution, yada 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 yada. Hold on a second.
Black Flag for me was my favorite.
Hello, Jackie.
No.
I got it. Thank you.
What do you get? Are you getting drinks?
I am. I got
Where's my coffee?
This is the new zombie frappuccino. It's only available like today, I think, or something
nice.
Like that. For Halloween.
Jeez, that was a mic drop.
Oh.
You gotta be careful, man. We're in podcasting world now. You can't mess with the audio.
Look at how like half of this Starbucks cup is invisible. It's really funny. Including the straw. You don't see the straw. Straw's green. Look at that. Whoa. All right, everybody who's listening to this, not on video format, is really confused right now, and I apologize. Anyways.
Yeah.
So, yeah, Assassin's Creed. It's been a really hit and miss series for me. I don't even think that the very first Assassin's Creed game was very good. I think that Assassin's Creed 2 improved a little bit, and Assassin's Creed 3 is where the peak was. The fourth one, the pirate one, I couldn't get into.
Yeah, I didn't like 3.
You didn't like 3?
I didn't like 3. Yeah. I really liked I liked the idea that, like, well, here was my Assassin's Creed experience. What did I enjoy doing most? I enjoyed elaborately setting up assassinations. I enjoyed exploring with parkour, and I enjoyed the combat mechanics. And Black Flag basically just took all of that and was like, here you go. It was just like, you want to just fight and shoot and crawl and explore and all that stuff and just do it over and over again ad nauseum, then there you go. And I did enjoy that for the most part. 3 was I don't think 3 deserved quite as much like the hate parade that it got. So, I do think that, but you know, was it the best Assassin's Creed? Did it peak at Assassin's Creed? You know,
it's up some debate. For me, by 4,
Yeah.
I was tired of it.
Yeah.
But this game probably has the best chance of kind of reclaiming a little bit of that glory. I am intrigued by the origins of the whole thing. And it also is it takes place in Egypt, if I'm not mistaken. I haven't seen the trailer.
You are correct. You are correct.
And yeah, it's definitely going to explore the origins of the Templars and the Assassin's Guild and yada yada yada. So yeah,
it's back there, and I am encouraged by the idea that what was the thing that I liked most about Black Flag? Very open world setting, kind of from the get go. What are they preaching in Origins? A very open world setting from the get go. So, I mean that's all good. I do like that. I've heard that it's going to take. Say again.
Oh, I say it may end up being very good. Out of the 3 games that are coming out tomorrow, it's the one I'm least excited about.
Right, for sure. I think a lot of people will be excited about it. I don't think it will be some groundbreaking commercial success, but, you know, preliminary evidence suggests it's pretty solid, you know, re-representation of a decent video game series. Open world exploration. I've heard that to really, really like full completion in the game is going to take somewhere in the neighborhood of 30 hours, which is great. I feel like a lot of people have been producing, you know, shorter and shorter and shorter games in order to package, you know, kind of the more, I don't want to say DLC because it's become such an ugly word, but particularly Ubisoft, and we'll probably get into it. But I know you want to talk about the South Park in a little bit, but Ubisoft doesn't have the best reputation of like just presenting a really, 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 really crunchy game right up the front. You know, generally it's enough to kind of get you hooked, and then, you know, they kind of start packing onto it and whatnot. So the idea that this is going to be a very long game with a lot of content right out the gate is encouraging to me. I mean, that's just good from a development standpoint.
All right, well, I guess that's where we stand, guys, on Assassin's Creed Origins. Yes, and I do want to spend just a couple minutes on South Park, The Fractured But Whole, before we get into Final Fantasy VII Remake territory, where I need to rant for about 10 minutes. So let me just say, I've been playing The Fractured But Whole, and I do think that it is an improvement over The Stick of Truth. I am a huge South Park fan, and I love just exploring that world and getting to know the characters better. Just like The Stick of Truth, it feels like you're playing a huge, long episode of the show with a ton of references to the 20-year-plus history of the show. So we already know it's South Park. The humor's great. It's hilarious. So I'm not going to go too much into that or the story. What I want to talk about is the difference between this and The Stick of Truth, which is mostly in the gameplay mechanics. Now, obviously, you've switched out mythological stuff, elves, dwarves, for superheroes now. Now, a lot of people are like, isn't that just superficial? There could have just been a patch for the other game. But it actually changes the gameplay quite a bit. In fact, this actually runs on a grid system. People familiar with The Stick of Truth kept comparing it to a JRPG system a la Final Fantasy and
it was,
Chrono Trigger.
To be fair, it was pretty much that verbatim.
Yeah, it was a turn-based JRPG. This game is on a grid, a la, you know, Fire Emblem and XCOM and those kinds of strategy games. So there's a lot of different strategy involved when now you're playing on a grid and you can go around your enemy or shoot from a distance. And if you guys are at all familiar with the grid-based strategy game, this is a lot more like that, and I actually enjoyed that. I think that's a huge improvement, and I've really been enjoying the gameplay. So I think right off the bat, it's just technically better than The Stick of Truth. I've actually even enjoyed the story. So I'm only a few hours into it, but already so far I'm more interested in the story that's going on. I was of course interested in the story of The Stick of Truth because it was South Park, but it was all just kind of funny, and this is funny too. But I feel like it kind of has a stronger presentation with where the game is actually going. So,
not to mention the whole entire thing is, you know, very relevant in terms of it's pretty much a giant jab at the current state of like superhero cinematics and all this sort of stuff, which of course is a hilarious topic of discussion that we visit all the time. Yeah. Anyway, so the idea that
riffs on the cinematic universe, you know, kind of motifs and what has now become kind of stereotype for different superhero stuff in media. And I really appreciate that as well. I would say that if The Stick of Truth was an 8 out of 10, I give this Fractured But Whole just an 8.5.
Yeah,
It's
that's about where I'm at too.
yeah, it's just a little bit better than the Stick of Truth, but it's definitely a game you don't want to miss.
It's a linear improvement in the idea that it's just a better presentation or whatnot. If you're not familiar with the South Park universe and you get thrown in because you're like, I've never really watched South Park, but I'm gonna try out one of the video games. Maybe you should watch a little South Park first, because if you're not familiar with the kind of humor that South Park lays down in order to make its commentary, you are going to be appalled. You're going to be caught very off guard by just the absolute raunchiness of the game. So familiarize yourself with South Park before you jump into this game.
That's absolutely fair to say. Yeah, if you don't appreciate the humor in South Park, you're either too sensitive to it or you just don't like the satire of it. This game's not for you. If you like South Park, you'll like the game. So because some people like South Park and didn't like the first one, I really think that you'll like this second one because it just plays better. But again, everything is...
We should speak on the idea of why it's getting review bombed on Steam and like what a lot of the controversies are surrounding it too. Because outside of just the idea that it is a game that is playable and good and all this sort of stuff, there's the idea that a lot of people are pretty down on it right now for kind of some reasons that have nothing to do with the gameplay.
Yeah, it's having a lot of PC technical difficulties that most of them have already been smoothed out with updates.
Right.
And I've been playing on Steam, and I've had no problems, actually.
Personally. We've revisited this conversation a few times about Uplay and about Ubisoft's particular. For starters, it's just another example of a time that Ubisoft put out a game on release day that struggled to function on a statistically significant number of PCs.
Yes.
So this is a really, really tired conversation at this point. Ubisoft has a pretty bad track record in this regard.
I was really irritated about the Uplay thing at first, but what they've done this time, and they may have even done this before, but I haven't played an Ubisoft game on PC in a while, is that you have to log into your Uplay account once and then connect it to your Steam, and then you only have to access the game through Steam from that point forward.
That's nice, because I got tired of working with both, and it's a minor irritant and whatnot. I would argue that DLC packaging is what destroyed Ghost Recon Wildlands, which was another big Ubisoft release. And I know that Watch Dogs 2, which otherwise probably would have been a bit more popular, was also riddled with it. So I guess I'm cautiously optimistic to see that we don't seem to be bombing it to quite the same degree. We do have a rather pricey looking season pass that's available. And again, season passes are just one of those things that are, I think at this point, 70%, 30% in favor of not necessarily a great investment. I've bought the season pass on a few games that I have deemed would yes, I'm happy about that. I'm glad I did that. I don't know that I feel that way too much about most of the season passes though. So we are yet here again with the season pass conversation, and I don't think it's going away anytime soon. And yeah, I don't know what else to say on that, other than the idea that I remain extremely wary of any game that puts out a day one season pass. It just raises more questions than answers.
Gotcha. Yeah, definitely. I mean, there are issues and problems everywhere, and that's why you guys need to be watching Video Game Talk live every Thursday on the Rich Alvarez channel, because we will talk all about them ad nauseum.
We get into this big conversation about, just sort of the current state of kind of the commercial aspects of producing video games. Because it's completely separate from this idea of what are video games playing like and looking like today. There's this whole different conversation about the economics as far as how are they being sold and distributed, and how is content being put out behind paywalls. What are the good things about it, and the idea that we're seeing life breathed into games after the fact, versus where do we see games being deliberately cut short in order to sell content after the fact, in order to drive up the cost considerably above these $60 margins. Is that worth it? Is it not worth it? Is it a good thing? Is it a bad thing? South Park just exists as one big current focal point in a giant spectrum of that conversation.
Right. All right, moving on to the next topic. And again, South Park, Stick of Truth. Well, both the Stick of Truth and Fractured But Whole, both available now. I give them good scores. Anyways, yeah, so there's one last thing I want to talk about today, and that is the ongoing news of the problems over our good friends Square Enix Japan and the Final Fantasy VII Remake that is or isn't happening.
Should I just chill out? I'm just going to chill out because this is going to be a minute from Rich Alvarez. All right, let him have it, Richie. Let's go.
I'm so glad that you've decided to watch Video Game Talk, and if you're not familiar with me, then you wouldn't know that I've been a longtime fan of Square Enix. I grew up with the original Final Fantasy games on Nintendo, as well as Chrono Trigger, which is still, I consider Chrono Trigger my favorite game of all time. So I love classic Square. However, it is no secret to anyone that perhaps Square has not been on top of things for the last 15 or so years. I think the first time that I started to sense a disturbance at Square Enix was Final Fantasy X-2. And actually, I think
that was a while ago.
That was
Richie.
a while ago, and I think that was one of the first games that they had under the then new Square Enix brand, because before that it was previously Square Interactive Entertainment or simply SquareSoft. And then it became Square Enix when they merged with Enix, the creator of the Dragon Quest series. So ever since Square Enix, they haven't quite been on top of things. There was also the fiasco with the original Final Fantasy movie way back in the day. I think it was released in 2001, which was directed by Hirobu Sakaguchi, the longtime director and creator of Final Fantasy, who was then fired from his job over at Square after that movie. So, bankruptcy problems, merging with Square, and firing Hirobu, all of those combined kind of started this big shift at Square. And I'm only saying all this to kind of give you a precedence for why I'm about to talk about, why I'm talking about, which is, I grew up with Final Fantasy, I loved it, they had problems, it's not my favorite series anymore, Square Enix is not my favorite company anymore, and really kind of Bethesda has kind of taken that place in my heart for better or worse, because of the great work they've been doing over the last 10 or so years. So, anyways, that's where we're at from that background point of view. Now, let's get into the Final Fantasy VII Remake. And let me just say that the game that they should have remade was Final Fantasy VI. But moving on. Final Fantasy VII, the remake was announced at E3 2015. And ever since then, people were like, when is it coming out? Obviously, people want it out ASAP. They've been doing minimal work on it. And then a couple months ago, we learned something very disturbing that was not made entirely public.
For context, not to ruin your momentum, but like, wasn't it like 2015 that we originally got like notice of the idea that like a remake is for real actually happening?
Yes, that's what I was just saying. The official announcement trailer was at E3 2015, and that was the first time it was publicly announced at all. So we got the cool E3 2015 trailer, and that's what exploded because before that they denied a remake was ever going to happen. And so ever since 2015, people have been win. It was kind of it was not publicly announced. Somebody from Square announced this at a Mobius Final Fantasy event a couple months ago, and we are starting to get more information on this now. But basically, what's been going on at Square is that a second-party development team has been working on the Final Fantasy VII Remake. See, we all thought that Development Team 1, responsible for Final Fantasy 15, Kingdom Hearts 3, we all thought that Tetsuya Nomura's group was working on the game, because Tetsuya Nomura has been and is still, on Wikipedia, the director of this game. And he wasn't, though, because for the last 2 years it was being developed by a second party who finally came out and said that they've been fired and that they're no longer working on it at all. And so, via other people from Square, we now know that Tetsuya, who was really not working on this game at all, is now finally stepping in to direct it, meaning that he has not left, but for the most part, stepped out of Kingdom Hearts 3. Now, why is this a big deal? Because a year before Final Fantasy 15 was released, Tetsuya had to step away from that to work on Kingdom Hearts 3. And even though I liked Final Fantasy 15 more than anything since 10, it had some problems, and a lot of people attributed that to the fact that the game felt a little unfinished. And I attribute that to the fact that Tetsuya left a year before the game came out.
It's almost like a major driving factor of their story organization disappeared at some point in production, and as a result, we were left a little unresolved.
That's right. So the ending, the last half of 15, and the ending especially, felt a little awkward, and I feel like that's because Tetsuya left to work on Kingdom Hearts 3. Well, now he's left Kingdom Hearts 3 to work on Final Fantasy 7. And let me just put this this way for all of you who are looking forward to this game. We're probably not seeing this game till at least 2022 at the earliest, because the work that they've been doing for the last 2 years out the window, because they not only have gotten rid of that second party development team, but the rumor mill is that they're actually starting from scratch because they weren't happy with what that development team was doing, and so that's why Tetsuya has now had to really step in, and he is all about perfection, assuming that he actually is the one to finish this project, because he hasn't actually finished a project in a long time. He is
2022 seems like a pretty brutal setback. You really think it's going to be that long?
Oh yeah, absolutely. And so I'm just filled with worry. I don't, and I've said this many times. I've said this many times to you in private and in public, where I feel like Square Enix really needs to add more people to their first-party development team if they really want to get some stuff done. Because right now we are looking at like 25% of the amount of people that should be working on Kingdom Hearts 3 working on it. And that game doesn't even have an official release date. But now that Tetsuya has kind of stepped away to take command of Final Fantasy VII, that really puts Kingdom Hearts 3 in limbo, not only as a release date, but that means that Kingdom Hearts 3 could have the same problem as Final Fantasy 15, where the second half of the game and the ending feel really incomplete. And then assuming that that doesn't happen for Final Fantasy 15, it makes you wonder what kind of a development schedule we'd be looking at for Final Fantasy VII Remake now.
It does sort of like ring that bill of like, I feel like we've been here before with this exact studio under very similar circumstances, and it hasn't worked out yet. And I think that is probably the most concise way to drum up a lot of the uncertainty.
Now, it could be argued that Kingdom Hearts 3 has already kind of gone through everything except for like the last few technical phases, and that maybe Tetsuya wasn't really needed anymore anyway. However, that's what they told us with 15, and it shows that that wasn't the case. So I guess we'll see and find out. But I'm just
don't hold your breath. Don't hold your breath for that 7 remake.
I'm just disappointed that this is still what's happening over at Square Enix. They really should be more professional and get their stuff together.
Yeah, I mean, for a high, you worry about, like, just their handling of such a high visibility project, certainly. And crap happens. Shit happens all the time in video game world, especially in these multi-million-dollar projects that, for genre-defining, games and franchises and all this sort of stuff. Like, stuff happens. But, to Richie's point, it's one of those things where it's like, it's starting to feel like we've been here before. We've seen how this goes. And from a creative directional standpoint, maybe it's fair that some eyebrows are being raised.
Right. And I know I'm ranting and I'm probably forgetting some information, and I apologize for that for anybody who may know the situation better than I do. But it's just that lack of organization, and they're kind of not 100% caring about the project, which is why I've really been looking towards Bethesda as my favorite development studio the last 10 years, because the Bethesda games, although, you can argue there's some bugs and glitches in them, those games,
problems for sure.
Those feel like really fantastic, complete games. And anybody who hasn't played an Elder Scrolls or a Fallout game, do yourself a revolutionary favor and get an Elder Scrolls or a Fallout game. It's just the best.
Skyrim will be available for the Switch fairly soon.
That's right. Get Skyrim for the Switch soon.
Has anybody in the English-speaking world not played Skyrim at this point?
I don't know.
Raise your hand in chat if you haven't played Skyrim. I just need to know. Anybody here not played Skyrim?
I think I've played Skyrim on at least 3 different platforms. I think I've played it on Xbox, PlayStation, and computer at this point, at least. I mean, I think that's all there is, really, until Switch comes out. But I believe I've played it on everything, and I will be playing it on the Switch again. Skyrim forever, right? Skyrim's
okay,
great.
well, yeah, of our viewers, I'm seeing a handful that haven't played Skyrim. Okay,
oh my god, do yourself a favor and play Skyrim.
Yeah, check it out. Check it out. It's probably the definitive fantasy adventure in video gaming right now. Possibly, I mean, for has been for years, for a half decade at this point.
Possibly the best RPG in about 20 years.
Yeah. Certainly. Just as far as like really interesting immersion is concerned. Yeah, Skyrim is available on so many platforms and soon to be the Switch and PC. The modding community is insane. It's inexpensive to acquire these days. It's not difficult to run. just do yourself a favor and check out Skyrim if you haven't already. It's a good time.
All right, guys.
Well, we should probably get into our Q&A session for about 10 minutes.
That's what I was about to say. Thank you so much for watching Video Game Talk. And now we like to save, and I'm saying this for the first time, but we like to save the last 10 to 20 minutes answering your live questions, assuming that you're watching this on YouTube. For everyone who may be listening to this in the future on iTunes or whatever podcasting format we decide to go with, I apologize that your answers will not be answered since we are not live by the time you are hearing this, but you may be interested in the questions that we answer, so please stick around until the very end, and we have a couple of things we have to announce at the end. So Garrett, why don't you go through and why don't you answer some of the interesting questions you see in the comments, and I will try to do the same.
Okay, gotcha. Well, let's go up a little bit. I don't see any questions pouring in just yet, but you know, we'll give it, you know, sort of the lag, and we'll chalk that up to lag, and we'll see that sort of stuff. A handful of people were asking about the new Jurassic Park game that has been teased a few times. I saw that come up in chat a few times. If are you at all familiar with kind of the new Jurassic Park game that's being teased?
I am, and I was a big fan of Operation Genesis, which was the previous park building Jurassic Park game back in like, what, 2004? So I'm very excited for anything that's like that now, and I can't wait. I actually am very excited for this upcoming game.
Yeah, my answer to anybody who says that is I just don't think that there's maybe enough information about Jurassic World Evolution, which is the title of the game, for context.
It looks good.
Yeah, from what I've seen so far, it looks great. And Jurassic Park has traditionally been a little hit or miss with video games. Let's just be right with that. There's a whole lot like Jurassic Park, the Telltale game wasn't that strong. It was definitely before like Telltale really started knocking it out of the park. Yeah, I have hopes for Evolution. I have hopes, and I'm personally really excited to see like the city builder and the park builder format. You know, that's not like a super wildly popular format these days. We're definitely past like the golden age of like Roller Coaster Tycoon and SimCity 2000. Not a huge market for that these days. So I personally love those games, always did, and I'm encouraged to see, you know, a handful of people really jumping in on a title that will bring so much exposure to that genre. So it's good. I can't say much more about it just because there's not a lot of finite information available yet, but Frontier Developments is doing it, right? They did Planet Coaster, and we really liked Planet Coaster.
I love Planet Coaster. I remember we were streaming Planet Coaster for like at least a couple weeks.
I feel like Planet Coaster flew under a lot of people's radar, unfortunately. And to anybody out there who is a big fan of Roller Coaster Tycoon style games, Frontier Developments has maybe made the best one anybody has ever developed ever, and in the form of Planet Coaster. Right. Do yourself a favor and check that out. It really was a diamond in the rough that I think a lot of people missed. I feel pretty strongly about that.
And
do I trust Telltale as a developer? Or not Telltale. Do I trust, Frontier Developments as a developer? Absolutely. Sorry, I interrupted you.
Oh, I was just going to say, someone over at Universal Interactive played Planet Coaster, and they were like, hey, we need to get these guys on the phone and make a deal because this is awesome. Yeah. Now,
and that was a good call.
Yeah.
That was a good call.
Now, I liked Operation Genesis back in the day, and it was very much a zoo, you know, what was the Zoo Tycoon? What was the game back in the day?
Zoo Tycoon was a game? Yeah, I'm not sure exactly what you're referring to other than maybe Zoo Tycoon.
All I was going to say is that Operation Genesis was basically a super, like, copy and paste, but add dinosaurs to that.
It was.
This game...
I enjoyed it too.
If this is just a copy and paste of Planet Coaster, but with a Jurassic Park skin on top, then it'll still be a great game, because Planet Coaster was amazing. But I do hope and believe in Frontier to make something a little bit more unique. Either way, it's Jurassic Park, so I'm going to play it. Whether or not it's fantastic is up in the air. And I guess we'll just see. Anyways, next question.
Okay, let's see. There's two good questions here. One person N64 Boys is asking the question: what do we think about Knights of the Old Republic being ported to Xbox One?
That's a very good question. And as and if anybody who's going to be watching Video Game Talk regularly will soon find out, Star Wars is the thing I love the most.
Yeah. That's probably the same for me too. I like a whole spectrum of sci-fi, but you know,
I don't think I owned an original Xbox until Knights of the Old Republic came out, and when that game came out, I had to get one immediately.
I love that they are continuing to breathe life into that really old franchise. It was a phenomenal. I mean, it's the best in my mind. It's the best Star Wars RPG that has ever existed.
Yeah,
pretty hands down.
It was definitely the popularization of the Western RPG, because at that point, I think Knights of the Republic came out before Morrowind, unless I'm mistaken. So unless you really liked the old Daggerfall and Arena Elder Scrolls games, you probably didn't care about, if you were even alive back then, to some of you younger guys, you probably didn't like Western RPGs. And certainly I've seen some people like EDMG who said he didn't like that style of RPG. This style of RPG you're referring to is the Western RPG.
Yeah.
Knights of the Old Republic is really
also, for what
game.
It's worth, Morrowind did predate KOTOR 1 by a year.
Okay, by a year. But yeah, I mean, a lot of people really like Morrowind, but I'm still going to say that I think Knights of the Old Republic was the game that really popularized the Western RPG in the West. So it's because before that, JRPGs...
Its influences are everywhere. You see all kinds of games out there that still very, very marketably show the influences of kind of some stuff that KOTOR and KOTOR 2 set up.
Because in the 90s, Chrono Trigger, Final Fantasy 6 and 7, the Japanese RPG ruled the 90s. And if you were playing a Western RPG, it was probably on some, shanty Windows 95 that, you got from your grandma for your 5th birthday or something, you know what I mean? Like, it wasn't like nobody gave a crap about Western RPGs at least until Morrowind, but probably until Knights of the Old Republic. And then that whole thing exploded. And now Bethesda, even though Morrowind did predate KOTOR, I really feel like they've taken kind of the personality and, the kind of like BioWare has a way of putting like human interaction in a game that no one else can, and I feel like Bethesda has really taken that from BioWare and maybe even improved
BioWare set the stage for that, for sure, in a way that nobody can deny, and that is an important distinction.
Yeah, so I'm going to give kudos to BioWare for kind of starting that. Right. But anyways, definitely KOTOR was a revolutionary game as an RPG, as a Star Wars game, as a game. It was great.
Affirmative. I think let's do one more question. I'm skipping ahead a little bit. Sorry to the few people I'm skipping, but I saw one that I definitely want to get into, if only for seasonal thematic elements. Sponge Caleb 847 Smith asks if about our feelings on horror games, and I felt like we could maybe spend 2 or 3 minutes talking about horror games, just in the spirit of October and Halloween, etc. Because obviously the horror games are everywhere right now in all video game media.
Okay.
Okay.
Sorry, you go first.
Okay. So, horror games. I am not traditionally a big connoisseur of horror games. I have a few that I really, really like. I've mostly gotten kind of the PC experience of horror games. And I am interested to see, kind of the new formats that people are unleashing them on. I think 2 of the best horror games to come out in recent memory are Limbo and Inside, which are basically budget games. You can get them both for like under $10 at this point. Phenomenal games. Looking at some of the more big budget titles, I think Alien Isolation is probably the most successfully scary game out there right now. In terms of like just creating fear and anxiety on a really, really primal level. Shout outs and honorable mentions to Dead by Daylight, Friday the 13th, and kind of not as much recently, but definitely thematically to Soma, which is by the folks who did Amnesia: The Dark Descent. And everybody heard about Amnesia: The Dark Descent because it was so disruptive when it came out, but not as many people have heard of Soma. I think Soma succeeds in being scarier in every single way than Amnesia: The Dark Descent. So, if you're into horror, check that ish out because it's a real strong title.
I think my favorite horror game of the last 5 years has definitely been Until Dawn, because it did this great job.
Strong entry.
Yeah, it did this great job of taking the quick time event, choose your own result from like the Telltale series, and kind of kind of the mood that was insinuated by games like Heavy Rain, and really putting a slasher twist on top of that. And they are working on a sequel to Until Dawn that I'm looking forward to. But I think that Until Dawn was the only game out of everything that you've mentioned that I really felt like I was inside a horror film. And I know that that's not necessarily the point of every horror game, but I felt like Until Dawn did give a sense of threat and dread that I wasn't getting from a whole lot of games. Resident Evil hasn't been great in years, and that was my favorite horror game for a long time, at least 1, 2, and 3. Until Dawn,
it's also worth mentioning that Until Dawn succeeded in being playable to a very large audience. My fiance Holly is not traditionally like a really, really tried and true regimented gamer. Just hasn't been around them for very long, and a game like Soma or a lot of those first-person kind of shootery style games like Alien Isolation or whatnot wouldn't be as accessible to her. But she was able to sit down, learn, and play Until Dawn very easily, even as a relatively inexperienced gamer. So big hats off for creating an interface that was intuitive as it was.
Okay. We've probably got time for a couple more questions. Garrett, do you see anything else that you want to answer?
There was a question earlier asking about the new Sun and Moons and the new Pokemon Sun and Moon. You're going to be getting them, and which side you find yourself on as far as the Sun and Moon side.
I got Pokemon Moon. I believe Jackie got Sun, and we'll probably do the same thing with Ultras. I'll get Ultra Moon, she'll get Ultra Sun, I believe. Those come out on November 18th, which is Jackie's birthday, and so that's going to be part of the conglomerate plan that is Jackie's birthday plan.
A lot of us, I also have a November birthday. We're all partying it up mid-November as like in one giant collective birthday party to celebrate the 4 or 5 November birthdays that we all have.
Yeah. See, I barely missed out because my birthday is December 5th. So I'm just right there at the beginning of the next month.
Well, whatever. We're doing land night for your birthday. It's gonna be fine.
Yeah. Oh, I still have to. Not that we should be discussing this on stream, but I still have to pick a night for that.
You do.
All right. One more question. One more. Who's gonna be?
Let's see. Let's look through here. That was kind of the ones I saw that all that all kind of grabbed me. Handful of questions on let's see. Just reiterations there. I'll sort of like insert my own plug. It's not really video game related, but probably it's good a time as any to maybe mention Stranger Things Season 2 hype.
Oh yeah, definitely looking forward to Stranger Things. Not video game related, but if you like video games, you might like Stranger Things.
You should check it out. Yeah, just if only to honor the nerd collective. I found a lot of gamers are really into that show because of the referential aspects of kind of old pre-video game and like arcade and D&D culture in it. One person looks like Jake Anstead is asking about our thoughts on the current state of MMOs.
Oh well, we do play a lot of Old Republic.
Yeah, the Star Wars Old Republic MMO is not perfect by any means, and I think has a tendency to be very convoluted and whatnot. But we are big Star Wars fans, and we do feel that that is a very effective game in what it sets out to do. So passive praise for that one. I know Black Desert has a lot of kind of tentative and slowly growing popularity in the States here. I think what is it? Is it Warfor? Or no, it's Warframe. I think Warframe continues to just slowly conquer a larger and larger part of the MMO market space, and well deserved. They are updating that game constantly. Haven't played World of Warcraft in a long time, but Legion seems as strong as entry as ever. I can't justify spending any more time in World of Warcraft at this point.
Yeah. Old Republic definitely is the only one that I've been playing lately, but I have, in the past, I really loved the 2 years I wasted on Final Fantasy XI Online, and Guild Wars 2 was really solid. But yeah, definitely Old Republic, and I'm just, I look forward to where they take the the MMO genre. I hope that it evolves. It was something we talked about on Video Game Fights a while ago. It's like, how can MMOs evolve to stay relevant? But anyways, that is unfortunately all the time that we have for Video Game Talk tonight. I hope you enjoyed this, because we will be doing this every Thursday. I'm going to figure out a schedule for all the supplemental Video Game Talk material that you'll see throughout the weeks. But yeah, look forward to the live Video Game Talk every Thursday at about 5:30 p.m. With Garrett and myself. Next week we will be going balls deep into Star Wars Battlefront 2 and be talking about all of the pre-release prep for that, and you know, what we're looking forward to the most, as well as whatever else video game news is going on at that time. If you would like to see more of our beautiful faces, you can always catch us at twitch.tv/RichAlvarezGames and twitch.tv/The Complaint Department. So go and do that. Follow us and subscribe to us there. Subscribe here on the Rich Alvarez channel for Video Game Talk and for the upcoming Super Mario Legacy movie. I hope you guys have had a great one. Garrett, is there anything else you want to shout out before we go?
I would really just, are you able to drop a Discord link in chat?
Probably, but it would take too long to figure out right now.
Yeah, you know what? You know what? I'm gonna help you. I'm gonna help you here.
Right,
just open Facebook Messenger. I got a link prepped for you. I just can't post it because I'm not modded. By the way, you should mod me.
Okay, I will do that. Give me the link. Where is it?
There you go. Copy. Drop that into chat for me. Just a reminder that obviously Video Game Talk won't be a place that we very commonly discuss Stupid Mario Brothers or Stupid Mario Legacy or any of the continuing episodic projects of Rich Alvarez's channel. Shout out to Secret Project! Woo, 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 woo! Woo! But a lot of that is all confined to the Discord. Please check us out there and chat with fans and grow our social media community.
All right. Well, Garrett, I hope you've had a good time, but this is the end. I super have to go.
Yep, me too. I'll see you all later. Thank you so much for tuning in. We'll talk to you all very soon.
Bye, guys.